The Spinoff Podcast Network.
K-pop to me means more than just listening to music. It's learning to be myself.
The Spinoff's new documentary, K-Pollies, follows 3 Pacific youth obsessed with K-pop. In a one-off documentary, see what they've found in Korean pop culture and how they bridge it with their own.
When you start dressing, looking different, everyone side-eyes you. But in K-pop, they're just like, no, like celebrate yourself.
Watch K-Pollies today at thespinoff.co.nz/videos. Made with the support of New Zealand On Air. You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is brought to you by Spark Lab, offering inspiration and practical advice to help businesses find their edge. To hear more about Spark Lab, including details about the latest events, workshops and business tools, visit sparklab.co.nz. And now, here's your host, Simon Pound.
You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is made by the Spinoff with help from Callaghan Innovation, New Zealand's innovation agency. Here's your host, Simon Pound.
Today is a chat about turning cool ideas into great businesses around day jobs and responsibilities, and having those products be picked up by some of the great taste arbiters in the world. Bridie Picot started out in New Zealand and then went to London and New York, working at some of the most influential ad agencies in the world. Around the edges, she always had an interest in design, thoughtful and warm, characterful pieces, and she turned this into Thing Industries. That was a partnership with a New Zealand-based designer that ran fashion collabs, was named the Maker of the Year by Urbis magazine, and was featured in Wallpaper and places like the New York Times for its playful products. Things that you might remember and have seen, like the banana pillow and a chair that had no seat. From this, Bridie has launched Wrappy, an online and retail design-led wrapping business, and also The Shack, an artfully composed rental project in upstate New York, things all feeding into one another. To talk making it in New York, making ideas into reality and the journey, we're stoked to have Bridie here in the studio on a visit home. Kia ora, good morning.
Kia ora.
Hey, so tell me about your start in advertising, working at places like Mother, which is famous in the world of advertising, and then famous in the world of office design for their big table that has been imitated a bazillion times.
Oh yeah, the table in the London office. So I got my start in advertising because my sister always worked in agencies in New Zealand at Mojo, Saatchi's, places like that. So that's kind of how I knew that agencies existed and what that kind of job was. So my first intro to that was actually working on reception at Waiwan TBWA back in the day. And that was before I moved to New York in 2001.
And then getting to New York now is kind of a lot closer. Like Air New Zealand's going to start flying there, and there's quite a few Kiwis doing cool things over there.
Yeah.
But when you were heading over to New York, was that the beaten path?
No, it was mostly Europe, London for Kiwis at that time, I think. Yeah, I'd always fancied going over there. My plan wasn't to live there. It was just to kind of try and move over there, see if I could find work. So I had about a month's worth of money with me when I flew over there. And the goal was just to try and get a job. Maybe, I had a return ticket for about a year later. Ended up finding work, and here I am, 20 years later.
20 years later.
Yeah.
And what is it, making it in New York pretty famous as, a concept? What is it? What's it like trying to start businesses and trying to get things off the ground in America versus the New Zealand context?
I haven't done it over here, so I'm not sure how different it is, but it's definitely easy over there. I feel like it's well set up for starting things, and people are very open to helping you get things off the ground and introduce you to people. The more people that you talk to about what you're doing, the more help you get. So that's great. But then I've also noticed, even starting things from over there, the support of New Zealanders has been awesome. Like New Zealand magazines and people in the creative industry over here and people who have stores have been super supportive.
Tell me how it began, because you were working at an agency. You had clients like Microsoft, like really big clients and really big responsibilities, and you thought, I'll tell you what, I'll make another business happen around the edges. Yeah,
so my role in advertising and at Mother was in kind of my job title was actually a mother. So I was looking after clients, managing the projects internally at the agency, and it's all very like timelines and budgets and.
It feels like that name shouldn't fly at the moment
these days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be changing that. Yeah, it's mothers, and then they had nannies that were our PAs that kind of looked after things and scheduled stuff. But yeah, there were male mothers, but they were called mothers as well, not fathers. Yeah, I agree.
So kind of account manager, but also producer, like making things happen as well.
Yeah, so a bit of account, bit of production. We kind of, mothers would get their hands dirty with overseeing production, so you have like a good production knowledge as well as the client stuff. But yeah, I felt like I was missing a bit of the creative side of things because I had been in art buying, which I really enjoyed before that. And so, yeah, I guess that's how Thing came about, is I just wanted another project and something that maybe could lead to me, having a job that gave me a bit more flexibility, that I could like come to New Zealand for the summer or something like that.
Kia ora. Sorry to interrupt. If you like this podcast, you might like ours.
We are Paper Cuts. We are the podcast all about books. We're like your book club in a podcast.
You can find us on www.thespinoff.co.nz or on all your fave podcast providers. Ka kite.
Bye. Read a book.
If you love The Spinoff, the best way to show it is to become part of the Spinoff members. This is the fund that helps us keep free and accessible to all without a paywall. It also funds some of our most important and acclaimed journalism. Check it out through The Spinoff. Tell me how you reached out first to the designer who you partnered with on that.
Yeah, so I had seen, I'd lived in New York for 5 years and then started working at Mother in London. So I was in London at the time, in quite a small apartment there in East London, in Dalston. And I had seen this design of this object called the sacrificial chair in a magazine that I think he'd shown at Milan one year, and that must have been in like 2006 or 7. So I had emailed him. I was like, hey, I'd love to buy this thing. It's, I loved it. I thought the concept was great.
What was the sacrificial chair?
So the sacrificial chair is like an outline of a chair. So you know how you have that chair in your bedroom that you just throw all your crap on, your dirty washing or whatever, because you can't be bothered dealing with it. And so instead of like wasting a nice chair, it's just the frame of a chair that's just for throwing stuff on.
Like the wrought iron, and there's no actual seat in the middle.
Seat, no back, just legs and a frame. And what did he say? I think the first time he's just like, oh, thanks for your interest. Haven't got it into production, but might one day, like keep in touch kind of thing. And then I saw it again when I think I'd moved back to New York, saw it somewhere else and emailed him again, got the same response. And so a couple of months later, I was in Wellington and just asked for a meeting. And I said, look, why don't I make it and, with your design and I'm going to start this company, because I had a couple of other ideas of stuff that I wanted to make. And he was into it. He was like, sounds great. And he ended up coming on board as a partner because he's an industrial designer. And we started Thing Industries together.
And Thing Industries became really well known for these kind of playful and, I mean, quirky is a funny word, but they are quite quirky in the best sense of the word, and fun, compact things that fit into people's lives with a bit of kind of personality to them. What was, what was your process of actually coming up with the pieces, and what were some of your favourite pieces?
So I think at that point I had bought a place upstate in New York, which is the Shack, which is like a 1-bedroom property up there on like 7 acres, and I just felt like everything was a bit bulky, and I wanted to create things that kind of served more than one purpose if possible. So I guess the process with some of the items, like the birdhouse, so it's like a bookshelf that you can rest a book on the roof. The cabin, which is great for like Airbnbs or whatever, because you can it's like a toothbrush holder, but there's also like a hook for a towel, so it just gives people their own little spaces. So I wanted to create things that weren't just a square pillow, because there's plenty of just plain square pillows, but I like the idea of a banana on your sofa that is also a pillow. Kind of thing.
And when there's such mass production, like, if you travel and you stay in 3 Airbnbs in a row and they've all got the same IKEA everything, and they've got the same lack of personality that hotels used to have.
Yeah, totally. I'm staying in one now.
Yeah.
I think it's just, I think people like the idea of Airbnbs because you're staying in someone's place and they've got a personal touch on it. Not too personal, but
we once stayed in one that had someone's partner's body shots on the wall.
Oh,
it was wild. That's an interesting thing to leave in
that's
the
cute.
Airbnb.
Yeah.
And then, what was the reaction to these products? As they were picked up in magazines, they were featured in like the world's greatest design journals.
I know.
And stuff,
which
is such a cool process.
I was so shocked. I kind of expected to like put it out there, build this website, and it just to, to kind of limp along a little bit. But yeah, all the press was amazing. It was insane. It kind of blew my mind a bit. How easy that process was. But I guess we were doing stuff that no one else was really doing at the time, and it was quite different. I mean, I kind of feel like with Thing, you don't want to have a house full of this stuff. That would be a little much. But I think paired with some more toned down things, a Thing product here and there is cute.
Little injection of personality in there, and then from that, tell me about Wrappy.
Right. So Wrappy came about because of kind of what I'd learned with Thing, which was manufacturing like 13 SKUs each in, a different location in the world. I was producing things in Scotland, upstate New York, China, India, LA, New Zealand, all over the place. And just like managing all of that was a nightmare. So every time I came to make a new product, it required new materials and stuff, and you have to go, to that place, whoever's doing the best alpaca things or whatever it is. Which was Bolivia.
I guess that's fun the first time, isn't it? But when you've got to go back the third time because it's still not working, it stops being, like all work travel, it stops being fun travel and just becomes work.
Totally, yeah. And also with all of that, just how big some of the items were, it becomes a bit of a pain shipping and then also warehousing. So, as soon as you're shipping big volumes around, the margins get really squeezed, and then you're just paying for them to live on a shelf somewhere, which can, if you're looking at that long term, it really adds up.
You're looking at your cost line, you're like, well, I've got 400 chairs that you can't sit on sitting in a warehouse that I'm paying for storage.
Yeah. I was actually able to get those to flat pack.
Okay.
Which took about a year and a half to find someone that could do that. But so out of that, I was just like, I knew what I liked, which was making stuff and collaborating with designers and artists on projects. But I wanted something that kind of solved the issue of needing to manufacture different materials in different places all the time, and also the storage and also the shipping. So shipping things out to stores and to clients. And I also love the idea of single product companies. At the time it was like Casper and Warby and things like that on the bigger end, and then on the smaller end, like Tatley, which is the temporary tattoos, and various key tags, which is the cute little key tag things. So people that just had one idea and were doing it really well. So I was like, what's my thing? And I had a good think about it. And I had done one gift wrap with a creative duo called Lazy Mum in New York. And that had sold really well with Thing. And I was like, I could do that. And my issue with that had been that like shipping rolls was really expensive. So I was like, I'll just fold it. And I had recently had like I'd had to buy a gift wrap for something for my husband's birthday or something, and got a cute present from a gift store where they always sell high priced cards or whatever, but they didn't have gift wrap. I think often with stores they don't want to have that big ladder where they have to like fold sheets over, and then if they have it in rolls, then it's just on the floor in a basket or something like that. So a lot of stores don't usually carry it. So I had to go to like CVS, which is the chemist place, for some horribly overpriced festive thing. And I was like, I could do this better and kind of think about how it ships without being rolled, which is, to fold it, and then how it's displayed in retail. So I think our folded size is kind of the size of an iPad, so you can see the design, but it doesn't take up too much counter space, and that kind of thing.
And then you can collaborate with cool designers and artists, keep it fresh. You've worked on environmental printing and the like?
Yep. So as soon as I had the idea, I floated it past my friend Kari Higgins. She is a New Zealander. Also, she was in New York. She's now in Portland, in Oregon, and she's running Bing Bang, which is a jewelry, quite well-known jewelry company over there, and asked her to come on board as my partner. She's very knowledgeable in all of the retail stuff, and had helped me with Thing Industries with how to figure out pricing and margins and things like that, because I had no idea. And so we put together a business plan, approached Combo, who are my friends Pete Harris and Kapono Chung, who are ex-Mother New York designers, and approached them because I think they're the best at what they do, and we wanted them to do the Wrappy identity in our first 7 papers. And they actually ended up coming on board as partners as well. So just like gathering people on the way. And so they came up with, we kind of worked on the identity together with them designing it and us all kind of having a say in it. And then Kari and I kind of concepted what those first 7 designs should be, and then they figured out, how they looked. And we got printing.
And how's it going? Like, it's got the direct-to-consumer side, so
Yeah.
pretty sweet little internet business there, and then in retail.
Yeah. I think our hope is that it'll pick up a lot more in retail. Every time we sell to a customer, that's one transaction. It might be 3 packs of paper or something. And then every retail customer is 20 or 30 packs. So growing that side of things makes sense for us. And then that gives us visibility to new customers when it's in store. So that's our hope, is that we'll always keep the D2C, but really focus on retail.
Having gone through the process of starting a couple of things around the edges, like what advice do you have for people who do have these dreams of cool things that they could bring into the world, and maybe have family and full-time work, and maybe are wondering if they can make stuff happen?
I mean, I would say just start it. I think the more you think about things and tell people ideas, the more feedback you'll get on something that doesn't exist yet, which is kind of a strange place to be. I didn't tell too many people about Wrappy. I think I spoke to my dad about it. He had a good idea to add the stickers in there as tape, which was really good and helpful. But I think just start it if you can. Obviously, there's like financial implications with getting something off the ground. So, luckily with Wrappy, it's it kind of solves that problem as well as not needing too many funds for starting it. I think we were about 6 months from the concept to launch.
And what will success look like for you? Is it the mixture of all of these projects at once, or what would your version of success be?
I think I would like to just keep, whenever I have these ideas for new companies, and I don't have another one at the moment, but just to be able to get them off the ground. And also I would love to help other people with ideas. I think having done it a couple of times, I know what the pitfalls are of starting something, what to avoid. And I think that's the fun thing is starting stuff. I need to get better at running stuff.
That's so cool. Well, thank you for joining us today to share your story with Thing Industries and Wrappy Paper that are both available online. That's Bridie Picot. Thanks so much for producing for us today, Alice Verpedell, and thank you very much for having us along and listen.
You've been listening to Business is Boring, presented by Simon Pound. And brought to you by the Spinoff and Callaghan Innovation.
From the Spinoff Podcast Network, that was Business is Boring, brought to you by SparkLab. Make sure you're following Business is Boring wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information on SparkLab, visit sparklab.co.nz. Ready to rediscover the joys of cycling? With over 300 kilometres of cycle paths across Tāmaki Makaurau, jumping on your bike and going for a ride is such a fun way to discover the city from a different perspective. Cycling is getting more and more popular across Auckland, so now's a great time to join the hype and give cycling a go. Head to at.govt/cycling to find your nearest cycleway today. The Spinoff Podcast Network.